Conversation on education. You know, we're nearly halfway through the school year for most classrooms in the tri-state. And as educators, administrators, and families really work to reimagine our education system, we're taking a look at how it's going this school year. So today we're joined live by a panel of experts, including Dr. Robert Sawicki, a New Jersey superintendent, graduate school professor, former coach and teacher, and Ashley Benkin, Chief Operations Officer for New Jersey Tutoring Corps, co-founder of Connected Workforce, and a former 8th grade educator. So do remember, we want to hear from you for the next half hour. You can submit your questions and your comments under the live stream of the show on our Facebook pages. So if we're right around that mid-year mark, depending on your district, how is this school year going? So Rob, I'm going to start with you.
So I think for parents and students, this year feels like normal. If we go back a year ago right now, many districts were experiencing quarantines and, you know, kind of the last throes of the pandemic before we lifted the mask mandate. So, you know, we were talking about basketball earlier, you know, youth basketball, the courts are packed, wrestling matches, you know, it absolutely feels normal. I think for teachers, though, it still doesn't feel normal because they're still seeing the academic effects. They're still seeing the developmental effects, the interpersonal interactions amongst the kids. So they're still feeling the impact of the pandemic while, you know, the rest of us are walking around post-pandemic.
And Ashley, what do you think? Where are we now?
It's such a good question. I think in New Jersey, when we look at the state, you know, they released in December that about 900,000 students in grades 3 through 11, they're not in grade level in math, right? So to Rob's point about teachers not feeling that normalcy, it's harder for them right now because there's more work to be done. And so, you know, there was about 700,000, I think, students that aren't on grade level in ELA. So, you know, as we talk today, I think it is really important we think about how we can support those classroom teachers and making sure they feel like they can have the same normal year the rest of us feel.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this school year feels different. I don't know that it feels pre-pandemic, Rob, but it doesn't feel as though it did the last 2 years. So how do we accelerate that learning if we know that there are gaps and we know that, you know, maybe not every student is exactly where, you know, everyone would hope that they would be? How can you make that, you know, get back on track?
So we do have a playbook for this, and it's been around for a long time. Benjamin Bloom invented what we call response to intervention or multi-tiered systems of support in the 1960s, and it works today, where we use universal screening data similar to an APGAR score when we bring kids into the world, and there's different scores, and we have interventions ready to go, but it's on the academic and the emotional side. So we have the tools to do this. What we don't have is all the time, we don't have the staffing to do this. We don't have enough reading specialists. Our teachers don't necessarily get common planning time so that the second grade math teacher speaks to the second grade reading teacher to see where the kids are at, compare notes, and to provide a holistic system. So, you know, ARP-ESSER and the federal funds has helped somewhat in some districts, but we still have staffing shortages. And we have tremendous turnover. So a lot of our more experienced interventionists, special education teachers, and reading specialists are on the verge of retirement or about to retire. So we have to talk about training a new generation of interventionists who are going to help support these kids this year and next year, not 5 years from now.
And Ashley, when you take a look at the tutoring that's needed, that high dosage tutoring, are we close to being able to match up the tutors with the students that need it?
Yes, I think to build on what Rob was just saying, when the New Jersey Tutoring Corps has conversations with districts, we tell them that we can supplement that intervention strategy, right? So they're tier 1, tier 2 students that are often on the short list. If you don't have enough of the math or reading interventionists to support all 3 tiers, that's where we come in and it's a right sweet spot. You know, I don't know if you also saw nationally, and NWA MAP and Houghton Mifflin are finally merging together. So this is, you know, the data of an assessment that tells those interventionists and that RTI model, here's where you need to push in and specifically what on, and then partnering with curriculum. I think when we can find high quality tutors that work together with classroom teachers to support students in that really responsive way, then it works. But to Rob's point, the tutoring corps, we're ready. It's hard to kind of get the ball rolling because some districts don't even know that we exist because they are heads down focused where they should be right now.
You know, when we take a look, I want to speak first about elementary school, Rob, but learning to read in elementary school and the ramifications it can have on future academic achievement. We take a look at, you know, those kids who were, you know, learning to read instead of reading to learn, you know, that really formative time.
So there's kind of two things going on, right? So there's the pandemic issue of, you know, I have a third grader right now. So the kids who were in kindergarten when the pandemic closure happened, that's when they were supposed to get all those early reading and pre-reading skills. So the current group of third graders this year are going to be the first group of kids, true pandemic kids, who are going to take their standardized assessments. And in order to do math problems, they need, in third grade, they need to read those word problems independently. So this is where the rubber is really going to hit the road on those reading issues. So this year's third graders are kind of really the canary in the coal mine for, you know, we think data's bad now, just wait until this summer when we're talking about that. And then second of all, over the past 20 years, you know, because of a lot of textbook companies, some of which Ashley, you know, just referenced, there was this idea of whole language. And, you know, it's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and Time Magazine about the science of reading. We went to school with phonics. We went to school with heterogeneous groups where we sounded out words together and our teachers read to us and there was listening comprehension. Well, for many kids, you know, a whole generation of kids right now, that was replaced with look at the picture and guess the meaning of the word. Right. And they lost those, you know, that phonemic awareness and that fluency, and we're seeing major negative effects. So that compounded with the pandemic impact really has now economists and people outside of education really worried about our economic future because our kids lack those basic skills.
I want to move the needle a little bit age-wise on this, Ashley, and talk about our 5th, 6th, and 7th graders who were, you know, in second grade and just above when the pandemic hit. It seems like they're making, you know, more progress, but when you look at it, it's expected they'll be back on track to recover in 2 to 3 years.
That's exactly right, because we didn't give anybody more time, right? So we've definitely made investments around potentially staff or curriculum and supports, but the school year is the same length. The school day is the same length of time. The 5th, 6th, and 7th grader, you know, they are making good progress. I think teachers are working hard with them, but that reading, if they did not get the foundation that Rob was talking about, there's no phonics materials that are geared to 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, right? It is all very like lower elementary kindergarten. And so it's almost, it can feel demeaning. It can feel like, it can really deflate you, right? If you are that struggling reader 2 grade levels behind, and that's what, you know, creates that downward cycle and also fuels all the SEL challenges and things like that. So I think the more that we can really lean in and help that grade level before they hit high school is going to be critical. Otherwise, they're not going to be as successful as they could have been. And
when it comes to high school, Rob, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, you know, artificial intelligence joining this conversation now. You've got things like that Chat GPT, and, you know, obviously the immediate fear is cheating, and, you know, maybe there is, you know, some idea that it could also be something positive and we could use it for inspiration, but I would love to know your thoughts on this.
Sure. I wrote a recent blog about this, and I went completely back to a 2007 faculty meeting when I was teaching in Somerset County, New Jersey, about Wikipedia and how, you know, the sky was falling because of Wikipedia. Kids are going to cheat. So if we get over that initial fear of kids are going to cheat, well, they're going to cheat if we ask them questions where they can just go to anything and plagiarize, right? So it's incumbent on us as educators to give them tasks where they can't cheat, and also have them do things in school so we can monitor them. We shouldn't be assigning that stuff at home. The second thing is that there's potential, artificial intelligence is not going away. And 20 years from now, we're going to look back and Chat GPT is the most primitive form of AI language programs. But it has tremendous potential for our ELL students and our special education students for modeling of text and how to help them acquire language skills. The other thing, when we talk about computer science, and we can't talk about computer science enough, you know, Rutgers has done a tremendous amount with grant programs to help our elementary teachers and our secondary teachers. The coding that you can do with ChatGPT is going to help many kids who you know don't feel confident in math, don't feel confident in computer science, to acquire coding skills that they can then apply later on in life. So there are major potential applications, but we just all need to take a breath and get over that fear.
All right, our conversation on education continues straight ahead. Up now on our website, resources and learning tools for students in your state. So you can scan that QR code that you see on your screen, and it will, there it is, it will take you right to our site. And do remember, we want to hear from you. You can submit your questions right now on our social media pages. We'll be right back.